So today I'll be sharing from Josh Korda teachings on mindful communication during conflict, and he has a podcast that is recordings of meetings he did in person called Dharma Punx, and he's well known for being capable of putting sort of very scientific neurological information, psychologically, biologically, anatomically, detailed information into concepts that are easy to understand, and combined with a spiritual practice, embodiment lifestyle. And so I'll just share with what he kind of, I don't want to say channeled, but sort of knits together, like weaves it all together. So he says most adult communication is left brain to left brain. We use language to communicate. In other words, we're using words, divided up meanings, analysis, and asynchronous, which is not time-bound, lacks nonverbal cues, which is online. So online or texting is not synchronized. We're not talking in real time. It could be you read it hours later, even another day, and sometimes someone writes a post on the internet. It could be years later. And these are often without the nonverbal cues that are transmitted unconsciously. It's not present. It's not attending or absorbing or planning what we're going to say, unaware of our physiological state. We could even call it disembodied, and it also refers to the other's affects. So we're not in relating. We're not present with the current information, and sort of all in the head. Disembodied is like kind of, the head is sort of, the left brain is sort of separated from the actual experience, from the present experience. And we're very caught up with like maybe describing or detailing. So humans are emotionally co-regulating species. Our limbic structures, which is like in the middle of the brain, sync up, and we attune to rest and digest. Co-regulating means we regulate together, like collaboratively. So when one's emotions are sort of affecting the others, it's sort of this co-regulation. And it could be that, it's time to be stressed. We're co-regulating. Everyone needs to be stressed. And it's because we're social species. Or it could be because, it's time to be calm, so we can get our cues from the other calm ones. We need in-person real connection for raising the serotonin and soothing and down-regulating that fight or flight or fawn or freeze response to danger. And a nourishing connection actually lowers the cortisol that causes those. And that really just means showing up as a conscious being. And we can enact our highest sense of self, or conscious beingness. Electronic connection, though, deprives us of real connection that we need. And empathetically resonant, reflective, reciprocity type of emotional attunement, like a realness of being here now with what's happening, rather than sort of getting stuck in the head of who I identify as in words, or you, is the type of emotional attunement helps us process not only deep pain, but also to experience deep joy. And this is the right brain to right brain giving meaning, including safety cues, which are entirely conveyed non-verbally, in terms of posture, in terms of openness of the heart, in terms of where the head orientation, if it's looking down or up, all of these things in terms of where the angle of the face is while it's communicating words. And two forms of conflict causing interactions is one, criticism, attack, rejecting the other, their core self. This is defensive, aggressive trigger. And this actually, as just mentioned, could be through nonverbal information. And two is giving up, shutting down, resigning interest. And this is closed regard, disengaged. And these are causing conflict. And both of these can be like that, or just demonstrations with posturing and expression. Happy couples, and he uses couples as an example here, respond to each other's bids for attention. So not criticizing, attacking, or rejecting the other's core self defensively or aggressively, and not giving up, shutting down, resigning their interest, closing regard, disengaging. 80% of the time, responding to each other's bids for attention, needs for attention. Audible remarks, demonstrative gestures, and anything we wouldn't do while we were alone, really. So this means anything that is interactive that we wouldn't do when we were alone, we'll be doing for the other's sake, and that's a bid for attention. Kind of, even if we just want to be observed, that we exist, or that this is who we are, this is how we process. And again, this is mostly nonverbal. And because this is about mindful communication during conflict, we have to remember that it isn't, that conflicts do happen, and how do we stay mindful during them? So rupture and repair of a loss of attention is repair gives a felt sense of I care. So clearly we can't always respond, even a happy couple, 80% of the time. Now, not everyone is in a happy couple relationship, but when there's a rupture, it's a break or a disconnect. It might look like one of the two conflicts mentioned, or it could be very subtle, like some display or some kind of loaded, stress from work, and then taking it out on the other. So whether it's a two-way conflict or sort of a one-way inner conflicting desires to be both a kind person and to rid oneself of negativity. So this is repair consciously, is re-engaging actively. And it's normal. It's normal to lose attention and then give attention. And neuroception, which is we are all constantly processing in the right brain whether someone is paying attention to us. In other words, whether we're being watched, whether we're being noticed. This is not necessarily, obviously, through words, because somebody we can see is not even looking at us. They're across the room, but we feel their energy, their awareness of us. We feel, even in a crowded room, whether sometimes one person specifically is not even eyeing us, but sort of noticing us. So then there's also right speech, which is related to this present self that is flowing, and it's speaking truthfully, non-harmfully, at the right time. And it is translated into right speech is like wise speech. So not only is it coming from this present right brain self, that's not all left brain trying to follow the rules and keep everyone in control and for order, but actually it's on top of that, but which the right brain can still interrupt and cut off and assert opinions. So that's still like this. The left brain can still cut off and insert opinions and interrupt. The knitting of the two, really, when we're communicating. So now we're using our left brain, but we're coming from this presence of the right brain, and we're speaking truthfully, non-harmfully, and at the right time. Means we don't interrupt, cut off, or assert opinions. We work on understanding the underlying emotional state of the other, and this is a constantly evaluating level of connection with people. So if we're mindful, we remember to become aware of internal experience with a focus on what's happening in the body and emotions. And this is a basic foundational level for a relationship, because if I am being mindful of myself, then you are being mindful of yourself, then we can be mindfully communicating. So if I'm recognizing that it's important for me to pay attention to what's going on inside of me or in my inner being, then I can remember that you have to pay attention to what's going on in your inner being, and we can have mindful communication, which is intimacy, bonding, conflict resolution. And he's not at all saying we should avoid conflict. He's saying mindful communication during conflict. And here it's a conflict of interest, a conflict of attention, conflict of emotions, for example. So we have to pause and settle, which is to stop the momentum. This slows the heart rate and breath and removes underlying impatience. And we get to convey to the other, you are the most important thing right now. You are the most important, not thing. This is so important to me right now. I care. And then we listen. If we engage, we give them a chance to speak first. So listening means both people can be aware that the other may be feeling unheard. And perhaps in order to not mentally prepare the whole time to respond, disagree, invalidate. So if we're even respond here is not even a response. It's actually, if we're preparing the whole time to respond, we're actually reacting to the need to talk. This is coming from the left brain. So if we're automatically disagreeing with their reality, or we're invalidating their reality, we're automatically disagreeing with their reality or invalidating their feelings, then we're already not being mindful, because we have feelings and we have to validate. We have an internal experience. We have to allow it to be in agreement with reality. And we also need to listen to ourselves and respond to ourselves. If we're so busy trying to override our true experience, that's what we're doing to the other. So 4 horsemen of unskillful contact. That may make us feel less vulnerable, but it's damaging. So in other words, we are avoiding our vulnerability, which could be feelings, could be feeling rejected, that someone's not paying attention to us, that we're trying and we're being rejected, or that the person's going out of their way to reject us. So these are the 4 ways. One is criticism or dismissal, invalidation or rejection. This attacks the other person. There's something the matter with you, with your feelings, with how you're being, something wrong with you all the time, right? So, well, not all the time, but I've experienced this where someone's constantly sort of making me feel there's something wrong with me all the time. And the number 2 is contempt, signaling disgust, exasperation, superiority. And this is kind of like, I'm looking down at you. Number 3, this is unskillful, right? So here we're learning skills. This is when we're not skillful, this is how we behave. Number 3 is defensiveness, expressing self-righteousness or victimhood. This doesn't leave room for mindful repair because it's all your fault. I never do anything wrong, right? And then these will actually, all 3 of these trigger the other person's nervous system, their sympathetic nervous system. They feel defensive. Their true self, their character, something about them is being rejected, attacked, and they're going to respond in kind, and it's not going to be mindful for either. So like we said earlier, we're co-regulating. We are receiving information mostly nonverbal. So people are sensitive. It's not necessary to use a lot of criticism. A slight gesture or a slight eye look a certain way or a slight movement of the head, as I said earlier, conveys a lot of information. And finally, number 4 is withdrawal. This is pointless. I give up. I don't care. And it's demonstrated by a total disengagement. And even if on the outside you're looking at the person, the feeling, like we said, co-regulating, is that the other still feels like there's a rupture there, that you're not actually really caring. You're not actually really looking or paying attention or interested, or secretly you're disagreeing or waiting for them to stop talking so you could go do something else. And this is something that there's antidotes, and I'll finish with this, that we use I feel statement. Let's say this has already happened. Let's say now we've both been, me or you, whoever we are, we've been in a lack of skillful contact. We can now use I feel statements. This is a way to now become mindful of the feelings. We say, I feel, and checking in. I might be feeling like currently at this moment I feel pulled in 2 directions. I have someone who needs my help. I wanted to do laundry, and then I want to go get something that will support me for a few days and somebody else, some resources. And they all have to kind of happen at the same time. So I could feel kind of overwhelmed by responsibility or a sense of burden, and then acknowledging efforts. So then I could sort of say, wow, like let's say I would do for the other. I can see where you're trying, or I can see that you made an effort. I see that you're willing to talk to me. I see you're willing to listen. Whatever it is, we can sort of recognize that it takes 2 to repair. So we can acknowledge efforts the same way in myself. I could say, well, I am trying to do my best to help everyone. I'm trying to do the right thing. Now, as long as my intentions are good, what is most important? Is there anything that could be pushed off tomorrow? And the truth is, yes. The laundry and going to the store could be pushed off in the morning. I could go to get the resources. On the way home, I could help that person briefly. So that's sort of acknowledging my efforts already is an antidote for criticizing myself or feeling defensive. And then the next is accepting the role, taking accountability. So it could be that I'm trying to be a good person to help someone, but I actually don't have the ability to help them. Or it could be that I'm having a lack of faith in the future, so I want to have extra resources. Or it could be that I'm lazy, so I don't want to do the laundry. So being really honest with ourselves is the only way we could really be honest with the other. And that's what we call right speech. I said it requires both the left brain and the right brain. It requires both being able to articulate and the right side of the brain, which is to be present, which is to be conscious. And so that means we speak non-harmfully and truthfully. So instead of like sabotaging myself, trying to do everything, or trying to do more than I'm trying to do, or giving up on everything, sort of like take accountability for my time, my energy, and knowing also that the future is very uncertain, and there's also a level of we don't know when the other is going to actually do better. It's sort of about repairing and then believing in it, and finally taking a break. And that's kind of what I just shared, which is that sort of taking a break from needing to be hovering over the situation or forcing or pushing at that point. Sometimes after there's been mindful communication during conflict, then it's time, like especially if we practice settling. So I just meditated recently, and that's where I got a lot of information. A lot of things kind of organize themselves. So in taking a break, we can have a chance to sort of let that muddy water sort of settle, and then something can come out of it, blooming. So that is what I will share today, and wishing you a good evening. Thank you. Bye.